from hurricanes, resulting in multiple loans for the same purpose. The responsibilities of small island states are enormous, and in the absence of truly vibrant private sectors to lead economic growth and development, as in the developed countries, the tasks performed by these governments have grown and have become more burdensome day by day. The increase in expenditure and the reduction in revenue from fierce competition and declining access to protected markets has resulted in fiscal deficits for several of these countries. The per capita income criterion, which has been used to determine the status of small island states, is unfair and misleading. I would like to reiterate that the per capita income criterion, which has been used to determine the status of small island states, is unfair and misleading. This has resulted in a reduction in the flow of much-needed development assistance for small, vulnerable states like ours. The level of per capita income does not always correspond with levels of development, as there are serious and growing pockets of poverty in a number of these states which require urgent attention. Due to financial constraints, governments are finding it increasingly difficult to provide adequate resources simultaneously for infrastructural services and alleviation of poverty. Hence, there is the risk of the poor becoming even poorer in these countries and the attendant risk of crime, including drug trafficking. We believe that the distribution of wealth, the vulnerability of states, the evidence of poverty, and the indebtedness of these countries should be given more emphasis in determining their eligibility as recipients of aid. Future assistance to small, vulnerable states should be proactive and responsive to sustain and build their economic capacities in order to avert their disintegration into HIPCs. Let me emphasize that future assistance to small, vulnerable states should be proactive and responsive to sustain and build their economic capacities in order to avert their disintegration into HIPCs. The domestic social consequences, the attendant security threats, and potential flow of refugees to developed countries would prove much more costly without this proactive and responsive approach. Mr. President, in this regard, I call upon the more developed countries to continue to lend financial and technical cooperation to these vulnerable states. The traditional agencies such as UNDP, UNFPA, PAHU, WHO, ECLAC must be encouraged to persist in their efforts to bring hope to our people by assisting our countries in expanding our socio-economic capacities. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Agradezco al señor.
Promoting and protecting the legitimate rights and interests of our children. Health and education are at the core of our developmental strategy to the extent that approximately 25% of our budgetary allocation goes towards funding education and health care. Our government believes in the principle of education for all. To this end, we have provided free primary and secondary education for our youths, as well as several hundred scholarships on an annual basis for our students to pursue tertiary education abroad. In addition, my government is in the process of constructing a state-of-the-art hospital and has already constructed several modern polyclinics at strategic locations throughout the island. Despite our country's limited natural, human, and financial resources, we have, through our creativity, made significant progress in advancing the socioeconomic development of our people, especially our youths. This has manifested itself in our high level of human development to the extent that Antigua and Barbuda consistently ranks within the first quartile of the United Nations Human Development Index. Mr. President, notwithstanding the progress that we have made, we recognize that more needs to be done. Against this backdrop, we have ratified the 2 optional protocols of the Convention and have established a legal system protecting children's rights